أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, praise and blessing of Almighty God be on the seal of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his companions, and all those that follow his footsteps from now until the day of Christ. Welcome to the continuation of our course of understanding government economic policy making. In our previous classes, we've talked about the economy, what the economy is, the GDP, the circular flow diagram, how to extract the GDP from the circular flow diagram, the potential GDP, positive output and negative output, the point at which the GDP should be, which is the potential GDP. And previously, we've talked about the business cycle and the fluctuation of the business cycle. But one thing that is missing is what really resulted to this fluctuation of the business cycle. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The business cycle is controlled by so many elements and so many forces, not just the government. It's driven by different kind of interest of individual firms, individuals, the governments, and the relationship between different countries, which is the net export, if it can be represented. In today's lesson, we're going to look at the two important factors that really influence this, that drives this business cycle and drives the movement of this business cycle. Without knowing these important tools or factors, we won't be able to have the foundation to make an effective policy as regards to our economy. So first, let's move to these factors that really influence and drives the business cycle, which are the aggregate demand and the aggregate supply. If you have taken any economic class before, I know you've come across the demand and supply. So what we're going to be talking about is similar to that demand and supply, only that the difference this time around, instead of price and quantity, we now have the GDP and then the price level. The intersection between these two, aggregate demand and aggregate supply, is what brought us to, or what will bring us to, the equilibrium GDP. And that's what you see on the pages of newspaper, or that's what you see on different sites and different data analysis website, especially with regards to IMF, World Bank, and OECD. So without delay, I'm going to take you to my whiteboard and illustrate how this aggregate demand and aggregate supply really work. Yes, here we are. We're going to draw the vertical line. Okay, the vertical axis. And we're also going to draw the horizontal axis. The vertical axis represents the price level within the economy. And the horizontal axis represents the GDP, which is the total market value of all goods and services produced within the economy. And now let's look at the aggregate demand. We already Some of us are familiar with demand and supply, so it's going to be the same thing, the same curve. The higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. The lower the price, the higher the quantity demanded. All right, so you can say, for example, this. And the same thing with the aggregate supply, which is more of the same with supply curve in microeconomic class, or in your normal economic class. It's called the aggregate supply. The higher the price, the higher the quantity supply, and the lower the price, the lower the quantity supply. So the middle is what we have as the equilibrium. So this is the equilibrium. This is the equilibrium. This is the level of the GDP. In this particular graph, this is the level of the GDP, which is the equilibrium GDP. This is the equilibrium GDP. And then this particular level, this is the equilibrium price, or the price level in that particular year. So that's the price level in that particular, this is the price level. So you can see where the economy is. If by any means anything happened and this economy shift outward, the aggregate demand shifts outward and the aggregate supply shifts inward or shifts outward, goes up or goes down, that really affects the business cycle. And that's when you see the business cycle fluctuate. In the next video, we're going to look at this fluctuation using this same graph of aggregate demand and aggregate supply. So this is, I forgot to write, aggregate demand, and this is the aggregate supply. So we're going to stop here, and we will continue in the next video and show you how this fluctuation really affects the economy. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for watching. And inshallah, we're going to continue in the next video.